This conference will now be recorded.
Oh, I have to add her to my sorry. On vacation?
No, she volunteered the president. And
Oh, okay, she's unable to do. Okay, I will add that.
Okay.
Some of them aren't. That's more like thank you for your input and further stuff.
I know this, but I know.
Okay, I'm going to begin.
Is it just 1 o'clock? Yeah, I don't have my watch.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this community forum on the revisions, to the design guidelines and to the rules and regulations of the association. This has been a project that has been undergoing for about 2 years. And it was interesting. The whole focus of this was not to add more rules. If anything, I would like to see fewer rules. I'm a firm believer in the best government as a government that governs least, and get government out of the lives of people's lives. But to have rules and design guidelines that have a purpose and that we can state the purpose for the rules in terms of, most often for the design guidelines, relate to the aesthetics of the community. And that's important, that we don't look like a mishmash. There is a commonality, but also allowing difference too. So we really haven't added more rules per se. We've tried to clarify rules and relaxed some of the rules that existed. And that's what we're going to unfold, and be happy to take your questions and make considerations. And with that, I'm going to introduce Wendy Linnell, who was the chair, along with Barry Rubinson, the 2 board members who worked with the task force, and she will make the introductions.
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, I'm Wendy, a member of the board and a member of the Community Standards Task Force. Thank you for attending this workshop today, both here and in person, and those of you online. The Community Standards Task Force has been working together for 2 years to update and clarify the architectural approval process, the design guidelines, and the rules and regulations. I want to thank the group of devoted volunteers who I have served with. James Arteaga, Community Standards Manager, Desi Rafalova, sorry, I always butcher her name, Community Standards Administrator, Eddie Kodanek, Architectural Committee Chair, Diane Quigley, Architectural Committee Vice Chair, Larry Griffith and Donna Griffith down here, Sub-Art Committee Chair and Vice Chairs, Bob Birch, past Chair of the Covenants Committee, he is down that direction, Barry Rubinson, Board Member. Our enthusiastic discussions led to recommended changes that would not have been possible without the group members listening to each other and working well together. I'm sorry to say that Eddie and Diane cannot be with us today. I also want to thank Bruce Stanley, Chair of the Facilities and Landscaping Committee, Jackie Carroll, Vice Chair, and David Stroud, member of the FNL Committee, for supplying valuable input to the task force as we reviewed the guidelines. David's line-by-line review of the guidelines is much appreciated. Last but not least, I want to thank Larry Fossen, Facilities Manager and Landscape Supervisor. He supplied useful information that helped the task force members best decide what recommendations to make to the board. The task force day-long discussion with the board of directors resulted in the final draft documents we are reviewing today. We have a PowerPoint to share with you highlighting the major changes recommended for each document. James will walk you through those changes. After he concludes the review of each document, we will take your comments and questions, including those that were emailed to us ahead of time. We look forward to your input. James?
All right, before I get started, Larry Griffith would like to introduce with the first slide that we have here, as we got a lot of questions online about this first slide here.
Yes, my name's Larry Griffith. I chair the subcommittee and I'm a member of the full ARC. I noticed that the questions that come in, everybody was concerned about, or not everybody, but quite a few people were concerned about things that they had already done to their homes, changes that they've already made. And let me assure you that if whatever you have done to your house, if it's been permitted through the ARC, you made the appropriate applications, got the permission and complied with doing it the way it was submitted, there's no problem. If it's changed in the design guidelines as they are proposed, that begins when the board certifies, the particular design set of design guidelines. Everything that has gone before has been approved, and you will not hear from anybody about things that are maybe not in complete accordance with the new design guidelines. Although I've got to say there's very few changes that's going to affect anybody in the new design guidelines, because I think we did a great job in listening to the community and doing what you wanted. I'll just turn this back over to James, but that's it.
Thank you, Larry. So the first major change we're going to go over it's not working. Sorry, everyone. It was just working a second ago. There we go. All right, everyone. So the first one is from the design guidelines, and it deals with the maximum additional front yard coverage for casitas and golf cart garages. This came about, we had a lot of feedback from homeowners stating that there's a lot of casitas in the front that are pretty much covering the main house, and they can't see the main house, and why are we allowing these types of casitas in front of the house, and which Barry liked to call them the McMansions. He said that's a popular phrase in California where people are just building where you cannot no longer see the original house. So this is where this came about, the 500 square feet in front of the house for casitas or golf cart garages. More technical difficulties. I'm sorry about that. Our guys are working on it. All right, the next one is exterior lighting. This includes lamp posts, exterior lighting fixtures, security lights, coach lights, anywhere on the lot. Approvals are on a case-by-case basis. So the major changes on this are here. They include the The lampposts are limited to one light. Exterior lighting shall not be installed in any location in such a manner that will adversely impact neighboring properties. Those were basically just explanations as we're already in place in your CC&Rs about light pollution. The LED bulbs that are warm white, soft, cool white, or daylight white. This came about when our country was going through a lot and people were putting out supportive lights, blue, red, green lights in front of their home. We were getting a lot of complaints from homeowners stating that it's starting to look like a circus around here. So we decided the task force discussed, and we said it's better to go with the white lights. And in the back, you can have the yellow bug lights. And then the flickering lights came about. A lot of homeowners started putting up flickering lights. They had the string flickering lights, or they had ones that appeared to be a flame. And there are a lot of homeowners who have problems with epilepsy and so forth, and would state when they drive through, it bothers them and it affects traffic. So the task force discussed that in depth and decided that that would be something that they would not allow. The colored and white string lights are permitted on the back patios only. A lot of homeowners do want to, you know, spice it up a little bit. And as long as it's in the back and for them to enjoy and their neighbors and no one has a problem with that, the task force thought that that would be a good change there. Landscape lighting may be only white. That goes with the same as the beginning when there was the blue, red, and green. We received a lot of complaints about that. The next one is prohibited structures. There were a few things added there. The detached garages. That has always been something that the ARC wouldn't approve, but they just wanted to spell that out. Untreated wood and exposed surfaces of permanent structures. They were seeing some applications come through with wood products that were treated, and they felt with the information provided by the homeowners that the treated wood would be something that they would allow, but still not allow any untreated wood for these type of structures. Playground equipment, that also we have a lot of complaints of homeowners who have playground equipment for their grandchildren and so forth, and they just put it out and just leave it out. If you have some small slides or little playground type of things for your grandchildren, as long as you put them away after they play, there's no problem with that. This, we're talking about big swing sets and so forth. That's something that just really doesn't fit Sun City Anthem. The roof mounted air conditioning units and exhaust fans. That was just for clarification. They always had just roof mounted units there. So they just wanted to put some additional verbiage in there. The sunshade sails, that hasn't been approved by the ARC this whole time. Some homeowners bring that to the ARC for approval, but that too is just the overall aesthetics. That's what the ARC looks at a lot. And yeah, some people think they look really nice, but we've talked to a lot of homeowners and the committee and the group, and they just all agree that the sunshade sails, although can help with the sun here in Las Vegas that we need, still just the overall look for Sun City Anthem, this type of community really doesn't fit. And the infinity pools, that was a big subject for the task force, as there are a lot of damage to the walls throughout Sun City Anthem due to the infinity pools, leaks, oversplash, a lot of issues caused that will affect the community in a negative way. So we decided to remove that. Pool installation setbacks, the ARC always referred back to the city of Henderson previously, who had the 3-foot setback from the rear. But now with the wall problems again, we wanted to have that 5-foot setback if anyone has that developer installed wall in the back. If it's open to another yard or just have a fence back there or anything, they will stick with the city of Henderson 3-foot setback. Here's another big one, prohibited plants and trees, olive trees. You see olive trees throughout the common areas. And so this was a big discussion and went back and forth a lot. People want olive trees, people don't want olive trees, but At the end, they decided as long as they're the fruitless, non-fruit bearing varieties that you see up there, then they will be allowed. And if you go to any Star Nursery or Moon Nursery, they don't even sell the fruit bearing ones anymore. And a big discussion about this was maybe 10, 15 years from now, they will eventually bear fruit. But overall, the task force felt that this was a good decision to allow those, as you see, olive trees, not only up here in Sun City Anthem, but throughout the Vegas Valley. All grass, that was pretty much a no-brainer with all the drought problems we're having here and all the grass removal that's being, that a lot of the common areas have to remove. So that was just part of that. Centennial broom, Thompson broom, those are just other types of the desert broom that were disapproved, that were added to this prohibited list in 2019. Larry Fossen, our landscape manager, definitely recommended these also be added to this list because the other type of desert brooms, whether they're male or female, that they need one another to grow more. And desert brooms are very invasive, and they're more of a weed than a plant. The tamarisk salt cedar, also more of a weed than a plant, so they just wanted to add that in there. And then the water thirsty trees, also because of our drought problem here. The living material shall be planted a minimum of 3 feet away from all property lines. This also came about with the wall damage. A lot of this had to do with the wall damage. We had a lot of input from our facilities and landscape about the wall damage throughout the community, and it is a serious problem. So we want to make sure that homeowners, when they come and submit to the ARC, that they show on their plans that their trees and plants will be 3 feet away from the walls. And also, as Larry said in the beginning, anyone who has trees and plants that are up against the wall or up against the fence, you don't have to take them out. It would be a good idea if you want to take them out, just because of those problems, but you don't have to. If you want to apply to the ARC to change your landscaping up, then they'll take a look at that. But moving forward, we need to have at least the 3 feet away from the walls for the water damage. Next, we have gates and walls and roofed entryways. So you may see this throughout Sun City Anthem. It's pretty much what the Trenton model is. It's just a courtyard within your home. So the front people say, well, the courtyards only have that 4-foot max of wall and fence, and I want some privacy. I want a courtyard with privacy. So for that, I put up the picture for this so you can see more of what we're talking about is the Trenton type of style, where you'll still have that courtyard area in the middle, but it won't be visible from the street at all. A lot of homeowners like that. They want their pets in there or whatever they want, but they have that. So we have guidelines so it keeps a nice look to make it look like that Trenton model and not just something that you can totally tell was just done after the fact. Villas and duplex units, all front yards in neighborhood. It says here from street to the garage, but we had some clarification. We discussed this, and for the villas, all of the front area is taken care of by the association, except if you build a courtyard wall. If you have a courtyard wall, anything inside of that courtyard wall is responsibility of the homeowner. So that's where we had some discussion on that, and that will be further discussed and put correctly in the guidelines before it is published. Also more just on the villas, they install 3 feet pony wall in the front. That's what we were talking about. In the rear also, so there's dedicated areas, deeded lot areas for homeowners for the villas in the back, where some of those areas the association does take care of that landscaping, but if you want to add, to your patio, make your patio larger, you do have that area that you can do so. So with the architectural approval, you can add to that area, and then you just have that landscaping that the association took care of removed, and move forward with those type of projects. Construction guidelines. This one, this stayed the same except for Sundays. No construction or loud landscaping noises are allowed on Sundays. This was a big discussion as well, a lot of back and forth. But they felt that there's other communities around here, such as Inspirata, that have the quiet Sundays. So they felt that, hey, maybe Sun City Anthem one day a week would be good to have those quiet days as well here. And that's the conclusion of the design guidelines sections. And we're going to open up the questions. But first, Wendy is going to go through the questions that we received online.
Thank you to everyone who submitted questions ahead of time. Possibly some of you are online or here in the audience. We can't answer all these questions today. Time is limited, but we'll answer as many as we can because we want to get to the people here as well. First, I want to confirm one more time about the grandfathering. There were a number of questions that came from that way. Please understand that what you currently have is grandfather. And if you choose to change something, that's up to you. Also got a few comments about the table of contents, and the numbering is confusing and not always accurate. That's absolutely correct. In the draft, that's how it is. That's why, as you'll see on the PowerPoint, we didn't give you table of contents or page numbers. We actually told you what section. So I know that's a little harder to leaf through, but you'll find it. I promise you there'll be a good table of contents and proper page numbering and proper referencing when the time comes and we're done proofreading. There's a question with many members losing pets. Why are we not permitted to make some type of safe place for them to be outside in an enclosure that could be behind a screen fence and match the look of the existing fences, similar to the requirement for screening of garbage cans? Who would like to take that answer?
Well, throughout the discussions that the task force had with the dog runs, that can cause problems for the neighbors. Homeowners who want those type of enclosures, many are responsible pet owners, some unfortunately are not, and some would leave their pets out for long periods of time, barking, causing a disturbance to neighbors. So, and that is why from the Architectural Review Committee standpoint, that dog runs are prohibited in Sun City Anthem, but we can definitely further discuss any of these suggestions brought forth today.
Okay, a couple of people said, why are we now allowing oleanders? They're poisonous. Who wants to take that?
So oleanders, although they are poisonous, there are hundreds of poisonous plants out there that are not prohibited that can cause harm to humans, dogs. So the oleanders, you see them throughout the Vegas Valley as well. A lot of homeowners say, hey, they're nice flowering plants, they're drought tolerant. And then Larry Fossen our landscape manager, also did some research and found that there were 2 cases of deaths in the last 50 years, and one of them was a suicide. So it isn't something, it isn't something where, if we disallow those, then there are so many other plants then we should probably disallow for those same reasons. So they thought it was time to allow those.
Okay. Go ahead.
I think that this was one of the things that, in terms of looking at the fact that it's poisonous, as James said, there are a lot of poisonous plants. In fact, next door, one person lost her dog to a sago palm. And, maybe we should outlaw sago palms. But I think, it's what's important is that the owner is aware they're poisonous. And I mean, and if you have pets, like I'm a cat owner, I don't have poinsettias in the house on holidays because poinsettias are poisonous. So there are a lot of poisonous plants, and you understand that and take precaution. Also, what we began to discover is that there are many, many oleanders growing in Sun City Anthem, and it was stated that there are probably 500 homes with oleanders that, as you talk to landscapers, they're constantly cutting oleanders that are in the backyards and can't be observed, so we don't know about it. Unless if a neighbor complains and allows us into their backyard to take a picture of what's in the other person's backyard. And that's kind of how we came to understand the widespread nature of oleanders in the community as it exists now. So again, if it's a plant that you're concerned about it, don't plant it. As with any plant that would pose a threat that you would see, sago palms or anything else that's poisonous.
Okay. Next question. Why limit the hardscape allowed in the side or rear of the lot to a specific square footage? There are properties in SCA that are very large and could be hardscape much more without negative effect. 500 square feet is tiny, all in caps. Who'd like to take that one?
Well, that's true for those large lots. It may be tiny, but for anything like that, that's what the variance process is for. If you have a huge lot and you want more than the 500 square feet, the ARC are going to conduct a site visit. They're going to go out to the property, and if it makes sense, then they're going to grant a variance for something like that. So yeah, that is a good point, but they're just trying to keep it limited for homeowners to completely pave their backyards and just take away from that landscape look that we have here in Sun City Anthem.
Okay, please notify the landscapers. They have been maintaining several large tamarisk salt cedar shrubs for years. I assume what he means here is that they should be removed. I don't think that's what we're talking about. Who wants to take that on?
I think they were talking about in some of the common areas, so we'll bring that to our landscape supervisor's attention.
Okay.
But tamarisk are pretty much just weeds, salt cedar weeds that should be removed and not taken care of.
Okay. Radio antennas, amateur radio antennas, please remove the attached to the home and attached to the casita. The reason is antennas do not work if attached to a structure. Antennas are attached to a mounting bracket. The mounting bracket isn't attached to a building or a mast or a freestanding pole.
That's great input. So the more information we have from Amateur Radio, Antenna Club, or anyone to help us with that verbiage, we'll be glad to take that from them, and with that, or if they have more input on that to add to the design guidelines. Definite good input.
Okay, flags, there seems to be some confusion. But you know what? This is really in the rules and regulations. We'll save this for that discussion in a while. Okay, that's it for the submitted questions.
Well, one of the questions you didn't cover that was covered here was any building or landscape noise prohibited on Sunday. And I know that we've gotten some comments that they have a small yard. Sunday's the only day their landscaper can come. So also people who might have a saw in their garage and do woodworking, does that mean that they can't go out in their garage and use their power tools?
Well, there's more description in the rules and regulations about the decibel levels and all that went into more details. We can talk about it now, and then it's an overlap. The discussion was relaxed Sundays, and it was quite a passionate discussion among the task force. We didn't all think it would work in the very beginning because people do want landscaping done on Sundays if that's when their landscaper's available, especially small landscapers who do bigger jobs during the week. We can always readdress this if there's enough people that want Sundays back. Frankly, I kind of like the idea of being quiet on Sundays. So we'll just have to see how this plays out with comments from you all. Weigh in, that will help us, weigh in on this specific issue. Go ahead.
Yeah, many of us got tired of getting woken up at 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning on Sundays by a blower. If they're just doing plant work and things like that, and they're not running one of their big blowers, all of which seem to be loud enough to hear 5 houses away, it's fine. Okay. It's the noise that we're trying to abate, not the work. But we'll listen to comments and we'll make a final decision. This is not a final document yet. The reason is we want to hear from you. Okay.
Right, this is a draft. Okay, we'll start taking questions from the audience. I guess you can line up here or, and then just
Come on up.
come on up.
I'd like to address the issue of the flickering lights anywhere on the lot. And I have solar,
Put the microphone a little closer.
I have solar tiki lights in my backyard. And having worked in healthcare, I know that they aren't flickering at a rate that would cause an epileptic seizure. And I'm happy to show you what I have, but I don't understand why a tiki light, particularly because the house when I purchased it has a tiki hut in the backyard. And I can't imagine that these lights in my backyard would pose a problem to anyone. I mean, you would literally have to crawl up my 8-foot wall, my fence, and over the bushes in order to even see them. So.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll take that back under consideration and talk about it for the backyard.
Would you like to see an example of what I'm talking about?
Sure,
'Cause-
send an
okay,
email. Sure.
Because they're solar, they just look like a slowly moving flame, and they're very pretty.
Sure, that'd be
So-
helpful. Sure, appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. Neil Madskin, Gulf Mesa. I drive community patrol at night, so I'm quite aware of lighting issues at night. There are a couple of things. One, I don't think you should have daylight lighting at night. It's just totally out of character. It's too glarish. Some people have lights on that come on when you drive by, but they are so bright. I think that you need to look at some sort of lighting, intensity limitations. And the other problem I've had is some people have landscape lights that are actually aimed toward the street. So when you drive down the street, they're right in your eyes. So I think that, would be a notation to make that lighting has to be aimed that it's not, that it doesn't shine into, that when you drive down the street, it doesn't, hit a driver's eyes.
So you'd like a rule in here that says basically no lights that are pointed off property?
Well, if you have a light on the face of your garage pointing, out straight, that's one thing. But, there are people, they have a decorative item or something, or a plant that they're lighting, and the way the light is shining, it's not perpendicular to the street or even at an angle toward the house, but it's angled more toward the street. So when you drive down the street, not angled to, driveway lighting, straight out to the street is one thing, but when it's angled at an angle down toward the street, so the light bulb is in your eyes. Straight is okay, but it's these ones that are, on an angle toward the
Okay.
street.
Yeah, we'll take that into consideration.
But also
It's really good input.
But the daylight lights, you drive down the street, they have, lamps or something. It's just so So,
You're talking about the brightness, or you're talking about the
well,
temperature?
two issues. One, the brightness, and two, the color. I think the color of
Yeah, the
daylight.
temp-
So you're
Tem-
talking about the
temperature,
daylight
yeah.
white, you would say no daylight white.
No, it's just, I think that, you talk about an ambience, and the ambience at night is a restful one. And daylight lighting, I think, is just very garish. Okay.
In defense of daylight lights, I would say one of the things is good lighting on your property is one of the biggest deterrents to theft.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Well, this was a perfect segue because that is my issue as well. I think we do need a lumen restriction. I think that the average 60 watt incandescent bulb is about 800 lumens. The soft white or the, what's the other word for it? The soft or the,
There's four,
Yeah.
daylight, soft white. Oh, I'm having a brain fade.
yeah, so to this man's point, okay, the daylight and the cool white emit a bluish white light, which is very garish. And if you guys would like to look at the difference between, and we can pass these around, okay, between that and this, it's like day and night, okay? I have personally 2 neighbors that are impacted by this. I, like this gentleman here, when I'm driving, they are literally blinding. If we're going to make a rule about aesthetics in the community, it should have a quiet feel. As like Sienna, they have lumen restrictions. In my understanding, for the outside light fixtures, they're not even supposed to have a bulb that's over 60 watts. And I'm talking about the old type, okay? Now, I know that some of the new LED bulbs that are cool white or daylight can be as low as 3 watts. I'm not an electrician. I'll leave that up to an electrician expert. But again, to the health issues, for people that have glaucoma and cataracts, those lights emit not only the garish view you see there, but they cause like a halo. And if you speak to any eye doctor, they will confirm that. Additionally, the idea that motion detectors to me are totally fine. And they are designed to go off when somebody comes to your property. However, many residents have these security lights, quote unquote, on all night, and they are not pointed down. I'm sorry if that's any of you in here, but I have made a complaint about that, and I have neighbors that do the same. I understand that people are concerned about crime, and I'm sorry that everybody, feels a little paranoid, but I did the math, and 17 attempted break-ins or actual break-ins out of 7,700 homes, it's less than 1/4%. This is a very safe community overall. So I'm just saying the lighting issue is really garish, as you point out, and it's very unattractive. Okay.
Robin, I want to say, as far as what you said about the security lights being fit, that's already a rule. I mean, that's already something that our compliance department works with. So that's not changing. They still have to point down. They can't
Point out.
trespass into your bedroom window or into your window
Right.
as a neighbor. As far as the lumens and all those things you're talking about, we'll readdress that.
I appreciate it.
And talk about that the same way we investigated the decibel levels for Sunday.
Exactly.
We can come up with something, I think, that would satisfy most of us.
Absolutely. And again, if we're going to put restrictions on, like you said, decibel levels or issues with flickering lights because they cause problems, the people that do have glaucoma and cataracts are really impacted. I don't have that problem, thank God. Maybe someday I will, but I'm just saying. And I don't know if this fits into this conversation as well. Mr. Anderson, when you said first, when you introduced, the meeting, you said that you were for less rules, not more. And at the end of the day, we'd all like that if people do self-govern. But if they don't, there is a procedure to report that. And I don't know what the actual length of time that people have to correct a problem that's reported.
I can address that. So we start off with sending a courtesy notice, which allows 30 days to comply. If they haven't complied by then the inspector goes back out and we send a notice of violation, which gives them another 30 days to comply. And
Okay,
at that time, if they don't comply, we send them to a hearing with the covenants committee, and that will usually be within 2 weeks or a month. It depends on when that date falls for the next covenants committee meeting.
okay. Well, that seems fair. Yeah. Are we going to talk more about landscaping later? Because that's my second issue.
Well, there is landscaping maintenance standards in the rules, so we'll get to that. Yes.
Okay. Only because someone was saying something about the casitas overtaking the house. I'm going to also send a picture around, and everybody can look at this, of trees that are literally covering the front of the house.
Okay, that would be in the rules.
Okay. Well, I'm going to send that picture around
Okay.
because I think that has to really be addressed.
Okay.
And again, if you've ever had a main water line break, it's a lot more expensive than cutting a tree down. But I'm just going to give these pictures to you. I have copies at home.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Hi, I don't know if this is something that should be talked about, but I have a problem with my next door neighbor's landscapers. She has 3 trees next in her yard that hang over in mine and drop leaves and drop leaves and drop leaves. And the landscapers come along with their blower and they blow all the leaves over to our side. We've talked to the lady and she talked to them, but there's always new people. And I almost have to sit out there in a chair and watch them. I gave them a big lecture. They said they didn't speak English, but I think they understood what I was saying. What do you do in a situation like
Well,
that?
that's not exactly today's topic. You're right. However,
But-
don't give up talking to your neighbor and tell, because it's really a neighbor to neighbor issue to start with, that they're not picking up, the landscaper needs to pick up the debris.
Yes,
I mean, there-
instead
when
they
they
blow
come
it
to
over
my
to my
yard-
yard
Yeah, well-
against
Yeah.
the house.
You can please see me afterwards.
Yes.
We have a process for that, and we
Yes.
can cite your neighbor not only for the overhanging trees, but for blowing into your yard.
Right.
So you can
But
see me
but
after the
but I love this lady and I don't want to
See,
make.
I could tell, see, that's so funny, James, because that's exactly what I sensed from you. So talk to her again,
Yes.
but seriously, James will help you and Desi will help you if you need it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
It is in the rules.
Thank you. My name is Tom Huckle, and I really appreciate all the work you've done. Obviously, there's a lot of work involved with this. One of the things that I was appreciative of that you started out with, you had the slide showing that everything would be grandfathered in, basically, okay? And I appreciate that. However, being a former editor, I'm looking at Section 7 amendments to design guidelines. And as amended, you've taken out, or you're considering taking out the things that say that shall not apply to previously approved things, okay? So I'm reading it now that it may not meet the intent of excluding the grandfathering in of previously officially approved things.
All typos are grandfathered in also.
I would have very much appreciated, in fact, I would suggest that you consider using your first slide as part of your guideline. Or
It is part of there. Mhm.
am I looking at the wrong place?
Well, okay. The beginning, the very beginning of the document that has the paragraph that James read and that what Larry spoke to.
Yes.
That is the salient paragraph in the
And
document.
It is, it will be in the guidelines.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
I-
Page
It will be
7.
part of 7?
No, it's on page
It's on-
7.
Yeah, it's on
Excuse me,
page.
I'm looking at
7.
page 35.
Okay,
No,
let me-
no, yeah, it's
let me
in
get
there in
there
the
with you,
beginning
okay.
introduction. That paragraph came directly from the proposed
And
guidelines.
I think that's great, but I think it contradicts what's in 7, so I would just,
Well, that's why we took it out of here, because he wanted it in the beginning for
Mm.
people to read it in the introduction. But if, give me 2 seconds.
sure.
Yeah, because we put it in the beginning, we took it completely out, and we only have one sentence there now, that the ARC shall have the authority to recommend changes to the design guidelines. So that moves forward, and so does what's crossed out in red. It's now in the beginning on page 7.
And I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
However, what's left in 7 wouldn't support that, I don't believe, the way it's
Okay,
worded.
we'll relook at it.
Thank you very much.
I promise you.
I just have a quick question. Do we not have a limitation on front yard ornaments, decorative figurines, that kind of stuff?
We do, that is also in here as under landscape accessory features, and it's limited to 8 landscape accessories in the front yard.
Is there a definition of the landscape?
They give some examples here. One second.
And we'll cover that in the rules and regulations.
Okay, thank you so much. It's easier.
Thanks. I just want to talk a little bit about the lighting situation. As you probably well know, several years ago, they changed all of the street lights internal to Sun City Anthem to make them dimmer. Are you aware of that? Okay. It is so bad on most of the streets. Now, my house is pretty well lit up. Last night, around the corner, this was in Westridge, 2 mailboxes were totally broken into and everything taken out of them. There's almost no lights in front of them. My house is lit up a little bit brighter than most in the neighborhood, and I highly recommend it to everybody to put bright lights in front of your house and light it up as much as possible. The mailbox, which sits in front of my house, was not touched, and nor was the one down the street where they have a little bit brighter lights. I run a little bit of a local neighborhood watch. I used to be the president of the neighborhood watch. And in our area, I have our people keeping their lights on as bright as possible at night. They do not shine into the street. They all point to the house. They all stay on that property. So I would also like to see if you could do something about these mailbox situations that are being broken into, because I know there were at least 2 last night and probably more.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Hi, I got a couple of things. First of all, on flickering lights, I'm sure those of you who have lived here any length of time would have one of the older houses like I do. There is a flickering light for emergency at the front door. So that if you call an ambulance, they can spot your house quickly, or a fire truck. So I think you need to put a specification in there where you say no flickering lights. This does not include.
Thank you for
Yes,
that,
definitely.
Rana,
That
because
was
you're
not-
right. Mine broke so long ago and it was replaced by a non-flickering light, but thank you for reminding me.
It's there. Then I also wanted to ask about security cameras.
About what?
Security cameras. I have a ring system on my front door, on my garage, and on my patio. Because if I'm in that house alone, I don't want to be one of these women tied to a chair because somebody broke into my house. Because my dog, although she makes a lot of noise, she's harmless. Okay, so I need to know, is that included in the grandfathered in thing? Because it's there and I'm not taking it down.
You do not have to take it down, but just for your, you could, after the fact, get the ARC approval.
The ring cameras are very small.
Oh, no, the ring cameras in the front doors never require ARC.
No,
approval. Yeah,
on the
but if you have-
garage, there's one on my garage and one on my patio.
Yes.
Patio is inside, so that doesn't matter. It just monitors all the windows at the back of my house. The one on the garage tells me somebody pulls into my driveway immediately.
Yeah, so you definitely don't have to remove security cameras. But yeah, just like I said, for your protection, for your benefit, I would just
Okay.
submit after the fact, so you have that in your file as approved.
Okay,
No
and my last
modification.
question, which is for a friend that couldn't be here. He wants to comply with the city's desire to take up his grass. And he's already spoke to people to get pricing to replace it with sod. Does he need ARC's approval since you're taking grass for grass, basically?
He doesn't. We
still
spoke
needs
to
your
him.
approval.
He does, and we spoke to him today.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah.
He should have phoned me, told me.
I will say you made me think of something else, Rana. A couple of us have been talking recently about things that don't need ARC approval. And we're not sure that we have a clear and clarified list of that. There's nothing in the design guidelines per se that address those things. We think that would be helpful if we had that. So that will, something to that effect will be in the final, and we'll, the task force will get back together. I respect what they go through and, with the applications, and we'll come up with a list of reasonable items that don't have to be pre-approved.
Now, oh, come on again. My last comment is for Larry. Just for your edification, it's an FYI. Your perforated steel fences do rust like hell. And if you ever drive down Foxtail Creek, stop at my house, you'll see my neighbors. All rusty, the whole thing. I can't respect.
I'll take it. Thank you. I'm here to talk about the 3-foot rule, page 25 of the design guidelines. The operative word in the guidelines, infiltration. Now, when the earlier comments were given, there was a reference to walls, and fully understood. If you have a common wall, you ought not to have your plant life spraying water. You're going to have nothing but chaos and risk to the neighbor. But if, as I do, you're to go on a morning walk, as I do up Foxtail Drive, you will find that there are many, many houses that violate the 3-foot rule in front, where there's no infiltration risk. Now, will all of those people have to take out all plants that are within 3 feet of the property line?
Well, if someone is violating a current setback, that's a compliance issue. Correct, James? If they're currently in violation. I'm not completely sure what you're saying. You're saying people are out of compliance with current rules?
I'm saying that there are plants that are closer than 3 feet from the property line in front.
Okay, we'd have to look at the
All right,
setbacks
no,
and
there
see.
is no setback
Yeah.
requirement at this time. So if anyone got approved by the ARC to have those plants or shrubs close to the front of the property line, front property line, they will not be made to remove. Just as we explained in the beginning, anything that was approved through the ARC will not be made to make any modifications on those approved plans. Moving forward, if someone comes with a plan that has plants that are in that 3-foot setback, then they would not be approved moving forward.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I think the majority of the people on Foxtail, where I do not live, would be out of compliance unless they had an original plan submitted with plants that are within 3 feet of the property line.
Mhm.
I just have, first of all, thank you all, and thank you for the people who worked on the ARC, because I know that isn't an easy job, and thank you. Just, I want to say you wanted to change the definition of a casita to put in the word detached. We actually have an attached casita at my house, and I think there's a number of neighbors that actually do. I'm not sure if you just might want to look at the definition of casita and see if you really want it the way it is. It has a separate heating system and all of that. It's a separate entrance, everything, but it is attached to our house. And then the other, well, that's it.
Tony Balava. I submitted to the ARC to resurface my driveway and courtyard with pebble stone. Today, Larry gives me a call Because I put 2 designs in and they said ARC doesn't allow designs. These rules were written 20 years ago. Why can't I have a design on the driveway, or especially the courtyard? It's surrounded by stone wall. Nobody can see it except me. Why can't I have a design in my courtyard?
You were talking about the Golden Knights?
Yes, sir.
For your driveway, the emblem of the Golden Knights in your driveway and the cat in your courtyard. Currently, those are prohibited in the covenants in CC&Rs.
I can understand the driveway, but why the courtyard? Nobody sees it except me. It's surrounded by a wall. You know,
Maybe you can apply for a variance request, and then we'll go through the full ARC and see if they can approve that for you in your courtyard.
and how do you do that?
You just need to fill out a variance request form. The ARC will do a site visit. I'll email you that form after this meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm one of those guilty with the blue and yellow lights to support the war in Ukraine. You know, that's only supposed to last 1 or 2 weeks. So now I feel like I got to turn my back on them if I take them down. When's the deadline to switch the lights?
You can put colored lights under your patio in your backyard, but under the new guidelines as they're projected, that would be the only place for either flickering or colored or any underneath your patio in your backyard. Any place else, they would not be permitted.
And that's the proposal. So all of these items will be further discussed by the task
So
force.
it's okay for the time being.
Yes, for the time being, definitely. After all of the proposed changes, after they receive all the feedback today and meet again, then it's going to be decided on by the board to vote for approval on these changes, possibly in the September board meeting. And then after it's voted on and approved, we have to mail that out to all of the homeowners in Sun City Anthem. And then 30 days after the mailing is when all of the rules become effective.
Okay, like how about special occasions? Like 27th is Penn State season opener. I always put blue and white lights. They play a Thursday night game, so it's
Right now, you're good to go.
Okay.
So enjoy it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but it may not be true in about a few months.
Okay. All right. The last two, and
Excuse
then we're
me.
going to move on to the rules and regulations.
Liz Breyer.
Hi,
I live on
Liz.
Aztec Ruin Way. I want to say Pat P, I believe is correct about the lights. And as far as where the light's directed to people's eyes when they're driving, then don't leave Sun City, because wherever I go in the valley, I've had that issue even with people driving with their brights on. And if you have eyesight problems, then don't drive. But I agree with Pat, we need to keep the lights bright to help deter crime. And I don't care if it's 7% or 17% or 70%, we want to feel safe. That said, I'd like to know about, I'm not the only one. I'd like to know about the change in lighting and in plants. If a plant dies in the front yard, we have to wait for the 30 days for ARC approval to replace it for like kind. Same thing with my lights out front.
Oh,
See, things do break. And
Good
if my
catch.
lights break, thank you. If a light breaks, especially the one by my front door, do I have to wait for approval as long as I'm replacing it with something comparable?
I think we'll make that clear. That's what I was referring to earlier about the
Okay.
things that you don't have to come to the ARC for. And we'll make that very clear in the final document.
Okay,
Yeah.
with plants and lights. And
Right.
finally, there's been a tremendous amount of focus on the kind of plants, the size of the plants, where they're planted. You mentioned about the walls, and while it would be nice that if people would take out the larger plants that are next to walls, they probably won't. But there certainly could be some kind of requirement about trimming them back. Because what starts out 15 years ago, for example, as a 5-foot required tree that's now 30 or 40 feet, branches are breaking off. From a property next to me, a branch broke off and fell into the neighbor's yard below. The people behind, the plants are getting, the trees are getting so large, they're overhanging our properties, and a lot of them are right up next to these large retaining walls. So again, you can't maybe require them to take it out, but I think you could look into requiring trimming some of these back. Thank you.
Just an FYI for you. If a tree is hanging over your property, that portion of the tree is subject to your maintenance also if you want to do it.
I
Meaning,
understand that.
if you want to take a saw and get rid of it,
Maybe
at that
as long
point,
as I
not
don't do
on
it
their
a
property,
Sunday though,
but the
right?
stuff on yours. I've had my neighbor come up and ask for permission to have his people come up and trim the tree, or
Mhm.
my people do it, and he would pay me for it.
I don't.
So that's a good neighbor, but if you have neighbors who don't respond to you, then you do have one option other than coming to
And
us,
that's
which you
not
should
fair. My
also
next
do.
door neighbor has a big issue with the guy behind him, and it's not fair to make them pay to trim back 4, 5, 6 very large trees. And the house behind me that has one exceptionally large tree is now vacant. They've been trying to sell it, and so there's nobody to go to.
We have to move on, but I will say I had a tree that bothered my neighbor and, they trimmed it back and it just about killed the tree, but I ended up taking it out. I mean, sometimes you just have to do that to get along with your neighbor. The developer put it in. So what can I say? I blame the developer.
My
But
name's
anyway,
Michael.
just deal with your neighbor. Yes, sir.
My
I
name
I
is
said
Michael.
they were the last two.
Or you can file a complaint as well.
Well, okay, what time is it?
We have to do the other half.
Just a second, what time is it? 2 o'clock, okay, we're supposed to be onto the rules already. Okay, you three are the last, okay? What?
What we will do is move on to the rules and standards. We'll have another comment period after that.
Right, we will.
Okay, so we're not cutting, this is
No.
really finishing off on the design guidelines. And if you have more comments, send them to us, channel them to James.
Yeah, as I said, we want all comments. We look forward to them, but we want to get through both documents today. Yes, sir.
Michael Sweary, and I have a comment just like the last lady about these trees. I didn't move to the desert to live in a forest. We have trees everywhere that are twice as big as the houses. What is going on with this? And we're watering all that stuff.
Right.
That is craziness. And now you're gonna allow more trees?
Well,
Olive trees? They're probably pretty short, but at least now they're short.
right.
I could bring you a picture of a tree right now that's bigger, twice as big as the house that it's growing next to.
Right. One of the things, know that you're free to change your trees on your property.
My trees on my property, I cut mine down 5 years ago
Okay,
because they're crazy to have in the first place.
I would agree.
So the neighbor decides to grow a forest in her backyard. And then she waters it year round, 7 days a week.
It's going to be hard because
Well-
of the grandfather clause, but we might be able to talk about trimming requirements, of course, so that it doesn't fall onto somebody's roof or in somebody's yard. We'll go back to the drawing board on this and talk about this some more. Okay?
All right.
Yeah,
Next.
there's another point here. There's a city law now that requires only 3 days of watering at this point of the year. If someone's doing 7, there's an anonymous tip line.
Next,
Yes, sir.
I'm Dr. Chuck Pride. I have comments only on what we've discussed so far.
Yes, sir.
Number 1 is on the all living material shall be planted with a minimum of 3 feet. That could be remedied by simply saying all new living material. Therefore, you don't deal with the grandfather clause by simply inserting one word. Number 2, exterior lighting. You say UV lights, yellow only for insects. There's also UV light for insects. So you're saying that certain insect lights are good and certain ones are bad? You need to revisit that. Flickering yellow lights, sidewalk lights. Again, those already exist. They weren't required to be ARC approved. You only said that ARC approved things would be grandfathered. But these are not ARC approved. They were just sidewalk lights and so on. They should be grandfathered in, ARC approved or not. If it exists today, it's grandfathered.
Understood your point. We understand your point.
And the third thing is, under security cameras, you say the installation of security cameras are subject to ARC approval. Now, does that include the doorbell cameras for one? For two, by having to report security cameras, there may be a 14th Amendment issue here because the police can require footage be turned over if you know about it, even though the homeowner may not want the footage turned over. So that's something to be considered too.
All right, sir.
Okay, the only comment I would like to make is on the noise on Sundays. I'm one of those people that our landscapers only come on the weekends, and the whole block uses this, I think with one exception, uses the same people. And it's always Saturdays and Sundays. It's the only time they can come and work on it. With all the wind and things that we've had this year, they can't always get it done on Sunday. They have to move, or on Saturday, they have to move to Sunday. So that would create a hardship for not only our neighborhood, but the landscapers as well, because I'm sure a lot of them only work on weekends, like you said, for smaller projects. Also, whenever we've used handymen, they almost always come on the weekends, and that's when they're doing the pounding and the sawing and those types of things. So then you'd run into the same thing. They could only do it on Saturdays if they're doing that kind of work. So I don't think we should do a quiet day on Sunday.
We had two versions of this. One was to simply ban Sundays for that level of noise. The other one was to change the start time minimum on Sundays so people could at least get some sleep. Okay.
That would probably be an
And we
okay
were told
compromise to
by
ask them to
people,
come
well, the
later.
landscapers come at 7 in the morning.
Yeah, see, one of our revisions said 11 a.m. and people said, well, they want to come at 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning. So we'll go back and discuss that again.
Yeah, and if you had to have a quiet day, Tuesdays, you could have the landscapers not there so that the garbage trucks wouldn't have to go around them. But, you know, just as an aside. So, thank you.
That was good. Okay, James.
All right. Let's move on to the rules and regulations. Guest policies and fees, section 10, guests at least 18 years of age may join residents in the gallery, Emerson Room, Delaware, Arlington, Bristol, or Green Rooms. Guests of all ages may join residents for events on the North Lawn. This was discussed by the task force, and it's just pretty much clarification. There were all different types of ages in the rules and regulations before, 7, 8 years old for the library and so forth. They just wanted to simplify that. And just guests at least 18 years of age can join in, especially if you guys have parties or anything, rent out rooms. They didn't want to limit it to small children or anything like that. Also, this one, guests at least 8 years of age in the library, as I said here, but this one they did stick to. Do you remember why, Wendy? I'm sorry about the 8 years of age one that we went over.
I remember we said 8 years of age because of Freedom Hall. At one point, we thought about having Freedom Hall at a different age, but we left it at 8. We can always come back to that. I'm interested in what other people think about Independence Center.
Yes, I remember now about the shows too.
Right.
They didn't want children crying through the shows
Right.
and stuff like that. They thought the 8 years would be okay.
And we
with
wanted to
that.
be consistent, so then we said 8 for everything in Independence Center. So, you know, we're open to suggestions for sure.
Definitely. These rules were just moved from the guidelines to the rules and regulations because there were more of rules than design guidelines for the home. So holiday decorations, patio furniture, signage, flags, which we will go over, which was a big discussion, trash and recycle containers, and residential maintenance standards. Those were just rules taken directly from the guidelines. So those rules haven't changed much outside of the flags that we'll be discussing now. So the United States flag, I'm not going to read this to you. The main part of this is that the task force is looking to allow all flags in Sun City Anthem on the flag holders on the garage. So the flag poles will still be limited to the United States flag, but the flag holders on the garage, you can have any type of flags there. They don't want to limit that except for curse words or profane language. But any sports teams, seasonal flags, any type of those flags will be allowed in Sun City Anthem. And that was a big discussion. Some of the task force wanted to see just US flag and just Nevada flag to avoid confrontation. But then they talked over and over, many conversations, many meetings. And it finally came down to, hey, you know, I think the homeowners in Sun City Anthem are responsible enough to decide what flags they want to put out and be respectful towards one another. Construction and landscape maintenance hours. This goes back to the no Sundays. There's a little bit more detail with the decibel requirements here and the type of electronic type of leaf blowers and sanders and so forth. So that just goes back to the no Sundays thing, which I think we should definitely discuss again, because that was also, as Wendy was saying, it was mixed feelings there. Some wanted, some didn't. So I think we need to readdress that and just further discuss that. And that's it for the rules and regulations. This had fewer changes than the design guidelines. The design guidelines are a little more thorough, and that's why it took a little more time with that than the rules and regulations. But we're open to the questions and comments, and I think we have some as well on that we had online from Wendy.
Right. Most of the things here, some of it is just like the design guidelines, the numbers don't match and it's not clean yet, but they all will be. Robin we already discussed the light trespass, also grandfathering again. Okay, homeowners still want to enjoy their outdoor patios and courtyards, but not all can afford expensive permanent patio covers. So why disallow sale type sunshades and preclude people from enjoying the outdoor areas of their home?
So we discussed that in the beginning. It was just mostly for the look of Sun City Anthem. There are other options, not just the patio covers, but gazebos and ramadas, things of that nature. So there are different options out there for shade in the rear yards that are approvable by the ARC.
I think the polyester vinyl is another less expensive choice, isn't it?
Yeah, polyester vinyl, like sunshades. They have that instead of the patio covers, the drop shades or the shades that are the retractable that come out that are less expensive than patio covers. So there are different options out there that the task force felt would conform with Sun City Anthem and just a better look.
Okay, that was the only question about the rules. Any?
Come on up for questions.
Come on up.
And as someone who does work around the house on Sundays, I think the noise level requirements for different things is ridiculous. Either it's loud or it's not. I mean, if the leaf blower is disturbing me, I don't care if it's electric or gas. If it's too loud, it's too loud. The same thing with a saw, and I have a tile saw that I've used, you know. And again, if it's too loud, it's too loud. I mean, how loud it should be.
Okay,
That
Neil,
was way too
what
loud.
did you do?
I use my tile saw.
I think when I was writing this section and I looked up, you know, a city of Henderson noise, and they were saying 65 decibel levels, I thought, oh, that's good enough for us. And then I looked up what are 65 decibel levels. So those are the examples you see, but they're just examples, they're not everything. The idea was to, you know, inform the homeowners of what is considered loud. You're right, Neil. I mean, loud is loud. You're right. And we'll never be able to completely legislate and do the list, because maybe something will be 55 decibel levels and it will bother someone. So, nothing's perfect in the world, but that's just something we thought we would do on Sundays. And as we can see by today, there are some people that would like us to rethink that. So we will.
And of course, for most of us, every day is a Sunday. And so why should we bar it on a particular day?
Well said. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Alan Butke from 2616 Memphis. Thank you for a lot of the work you've done. There's a lot of stuff in here, and I know the biggest part of the problem is how much of it is anecdotal or personal, emotional kind of thing. Like, you can't see the front of the house, but yet on the Trenton, we can put up a thing so we can't see the front of the house. So, we go in circles sometimes, circular logic. But I found some errors or redundancies. I just wondered, what's the best way or how you guys are going to go about the next step of scrubbing and washing the document?
Send us emails.
Okay.
Refer to the page or the section so we make sure we understand what you're talking about. And then when the task force gets together again to finalize this and then give it to the board one final time for a look, we will have everybody's comments.
Okay.
So I don't care how many there are. We'll go through all your comments.
Not being a pet owner, and I love the people that have pets, and I'm just wondering how they're going to deal with the 6-foot leash law when they have retractable leashes.
That's the city of Henderson leash law. But I don't know, we can talk about that again, but that's the current animal control regulation.
Yeah, the rules that are that if Henderson has something, we can be more strict, but we cannot be more lenient. So if it's an unenforceable law that Henderson's passed, that's the law unless we decide, to make it a 3-foot here, which we didn't. So, but we can't do 12 because that makes it more lenient and that's not legal.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Maria Graham. As the founder of the Community Neighborhood Watch Program, an SCA, I want to go on record to object to the blatant disregard of the safety measures set up by our group for the residents of SCA. The HOA, by continuing to promote sharing of photos and addresses of residents to strangers throughout Las Vegas and neighboring areas via the so-called community garage sale days, and including verbiage in this SCA document, is putting our community at risk, in my estimation. Number 15.14, garage sales. Garage sales on a lot are prohibited except for community-wide garage sales scheduled by the association twice a year. We are living in the year of 2022 in Las Vegas, not Kansas in 1940s. More and more communities are getting closer to us. The crime rate is rising. The violence in crime is rising. The two gangs that are situated in the Sun City Anthem area are growing. I did not move up here to this special place to have to worry about purchasing more and more security items, while our HOA invites unknown people into our 200 or so acres to scrutinize our areas for a few. I suggest that this article be removed from the document and that the sponsored activity be curtailed at this time until a safer way of presenting, offering residents a way to get rid of their junk.
Oh, Samari,
Yes.
thank you for that. There was an evolution on this. It used to be that people would come to the parking lot, and that was twice a year. And there was many requests to please let us have garage sale at our house. And this was the request that was considered, and the board, wasn't it like 2 years ago, Steve, we agreed to the community-wide garage sale twice a year.
I understand.
So we've evolved to this. You're saying we should devolve back to what it
No,
was.
I'm saying that it was done before you guys did it, okay? It was done, I don't remember the year that it was done, but we did we did approach the board at that time, and it was not self-governed at that time. We approached the board and we said, this is not a safe thing for inviting strangers into our property. Already, we know that people come around anyway, but when you put photographs and absolute addresses of people, the people who are not involved are put at risk. I mean, if you have 400 residents who do this, you've got 7,000 others who are not. So anybody who's interested in speaking out with me, please contact me. Most people know how to get in contact with me because I'm an old person and I feel threatened. I'm from New York City and I know how crime grows. I used to be the block captain in my building. We did not let strangers come into our building, yet this HOA is inviting strangers into our village. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Samaria. We'll talk about that again. Hi.
I'm Sandy Stapleton. Can we revisit the 6 a.m. for the gardeners and workers?
You mean the Sunday hours?
No, period.
Every day, yes.
Every
6 to
day.
7. That's the city of Henderson.
We're doing City of Henderson.
But can't we be a little more restrictive?
We
can.
We can.
Can we revisit that? Most of us are retired, and sure, sometimes we're up at 6, but not always. And if we're not, we don't want to be. Thanks.
Yeah, that was a big discussion as well through the task force because, and half of them said, yeah, I want to sleep in. Half said, hey, a lot of the gardeners and workers, they want to come early because of the heat, especially in the summertime. And they were taking that into consideration. Thank you.
I just wanted to make one quick comment about section 1511.5.
Can you go closer to the microphone? They're asking, they can't hear you.
I just wanted to make a quick comment about section 1511.5, where it says that trees and plants can overhang into the street 14 feet over. And I just wanted to say that we have the RV club is one of the largest clubs we have in Sun City Anthem, and we have over 100 residents that are part of that club. And we have a lot of people who have RVs who are not even in the club. And trees that extend out 14 feet into the street give us RVers a lot of pain because they scratch our vehicles up. And if there's anybody parked, a lot of times we can avoid them by driving down the middle of the street, which a lot of people don't want RVs to drive down the middle of the street. But if there's any kind of vehicle there that's doing maintenance or anything, then we really are forced into the trees a lot of times. So I just wanted to bring that up to maybe revisit that.
It's a 14-foot clearance. So.
Yeah, so you're saying they need to be 14 feet up?
Yes.
I didn't read that the way. You might want to clarify the language here, because I don't care if they go all the way across the street if they're high enough. And I know you've got some RVers, on the committee. So
that is what it's referring to, 14 feet
okay, if you could,
clearance, and then the 8 foot over the sidewalk clearance.
Yeah, if you could maybe clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Definitely.
Hey, Wendy, after Chuck goes, we have a comment online we should discuss, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the first one is that who and where do you report these violations to? There seems to be no mention at all of a procedure or phone numbers or emails. And if it's a noise complaint on a Sunday and we go to you and you write a letter for 30 days and all this, it just seems to get out of hand. Second, on signage, you say in section 15.8, subsection H, only one, no soliciting, no trespassing, or no dogs allowed sign is permitted on the property. Now, this soliciting sign and trespassing sign has to be there if you're going to call the Henderson Police to enforce it. So you're saying you have to choose between dogs, you don't want dogs, or you don't want the sign. So I think that the idea of only one sign.
We'll
needs to be-
clarify that, because
clarify that,
that's not what we meant.
One each.
So thank you for that.
Needs to be revisited.
We will.
Lastly, under flags, you may want to check the Nevada Revised Statutes 116.320, which says the rights of homeowners to display the flag of the United States or the state of Nevada shall not be infringed.
Right.
And you've said in here several times, only the United States flag may be displayed.
On the flagpole.
Well, if he wants to fly the Nevada flag, that's not against
That-
the rules.
That's correct. It can go in the garage holder.
It could also go on the pole.
No, sir.
Well,
It could.
We.
I would revisit and
I will
look
revisit that. I promise you we will. We
116.320.
we will comply with the law.
Okay. And
On the pole.
in 15.9.
Okay, we'll clarify that. I'm being whispered to that it can fly under the American flag on the flagpole. So we'll make sure that that's clear.
15.9.2, you cite the U.S. Code, Chapter 4, Section 8, about conditions for flying a U.S. flag. This is the flag code. Yet beneath it, you selectively select specific sections that you're going to reprint. Now, one, if you've already cited the citation of Chapter 4, Section 8, you don't need to reprint the stuff. The second thing is, if you're going to reprint those subparagraphs, who is it that's selectively deciding that only certain of those subparagraphs will be printed?
Well, because it's a very long
I know it's very long.
document, and we picked what we thought at this. We refer people to the flag code, but we'll relook at that.
Well, if you simply refer to the flag code and tell them that's where to go, you don't have to print all those subparagraphs.
That's possible. You're right.
So
We were just trying to be comprehensive and save people from looking. I did want to answer your question about enforcement. And on page 7, it does talk about enforcement, that the rules shall be enforced by the Board of Directors and Covenants Committee. And then it talks about compliance, and it talks about residents and how residents submit a compliance complaint. So it's in here in the rules.
And there might be a consideration that maybe if you have a existing complaint, maybe Community Patrol could come by just to verify it. Talk to them about it, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you may need a witness to say, you know, this person's.
Well, we don't,
doing such and
we will come,
Just
the
ask them.
community standards will go out and confirm.
One of the things that I think, we can certainly do is at the front, put the compliance office and staff and phone numbers and address there, but also the City of Henderson Code Enforcement and how to contact them, because there are many situations that really are more appropriately dealt with by City of Henderson Code Enforcement and maybe more quickly dealt with. One of the things that we try to do here is we can come up with all kinds of rules, but then how do you enforce them? So for instance, we can say a leaf blower shouldn't be any more than how many decibels. That means you're going to have a decibel meter and collect the information. And at some point that gets a little ridiculous. I mean, because then we'll get into, do you have a properly calibrated decibel meter, etc. And so the issue becomes how do you enforce these rules? We can come up with many rules, but one of the things we're really trying to do is to really cut down on the work that gets reported to James in the compliance office in terms of things that, you can take a complaint and it's a rule, but if the office is closed on Sunday and there's a landscaper running about on Sunday, what do you do? And then we go into a 90-day, up to 90-day period to get it rectified. And I think that, it's important that everyone understand that process, in that rule violations are never dealt with quickly. It's a process. And so that's one of the things where, I'm really in favor that we focus on those rules and standards that can be more easily enforced rather than become almost impossible to enforce.
And in fact, that is the law that says they have to be, reasonable and reasonably enforced. Sandy, there's a question.
Yep, it says in the following section 14.5, what is a common area? Is a person's property considered a common area? I think a discharge of a firearm anywhere in SCA poses a safety concern. 14.5, firearms, the discharge of firearms within the common areas of the community is prohibited. The term firearms includes BB guns, pellet guns, and other firearms of all type, regardless of size.
Okay, we can look at this again, but obviously the firearms is for the common areas, which is not your own lot and what goes on your lot and in your home. So we'll make sure that that's very clear, but we're saying no discharge of firearms, in the pool area or in this building or in this room.
And that
right
language
here.
was just taken straight from the CCNR, so that was always in the CCNRs.
Thank you for saying that, James. That's right.
Well, and also, you have a City of Henderson ordinance. There's no discharge of firearms in the City of Henderson, so.
So any last questions? Okay, we really want to thank,
Come on up for last questions.
Please come on up.
My question's a grandparent question.
Yes.
I sent an email about the children's hours and
Oh.
that was all blocked, all crossed off, what the hours are.
we decided after discussing, as we did other items, we're not going to put the hours in. The hours will be well known. Right now, they haven't changed. But if we have them in the document, we'd have to send it out with 30 days notice. It would cost a big mailing. So we're going to just use the document to say that the children's hours will be posted by the pool. Only Anthem Center Pool allows.
Right.
Independence and Liberty doesn't. So the children hour for the pools will be posted, clearly posted. I don't anticipate any change. We haven't heard anything, any request to change the hours. That's not why it was taken out. It was taken out in the case a few years from now, we decide to add another hour and we don't want to have to do a big notice to the homeowners.
Okay, so my other question then is, and the only reason I ask this is because I have kids that come and see us maybe once every couple of years.
Sure.
So it says that the guests are limited to 3 people. Well, I have 3 grandchildren. So if I want to bring my 3 grandchildren, what about their parents?
I understand. I've been doing this for many years. You're right. That always comes up. What's the fair number? Is it 3? Is it 5? Is it 3 for you and 3 for your husband and then 6? We can go back and discuss that again. I think that staff would have good input for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, so far it's never been an issue. you know, nobody's ever said anything, but then
But I'll write that down
one
to
day
look
you're
at that
gonna
again.
get, okay, my 3 grandchildren are here and my son and my daughter-in-law are with them. Oh, you 3 can come, but you 2 can't.
I hear you. I hear you. We'll go back and look at that. We have to have something that's obviously reasonable.
And is
'cause
that the
I've seen communities where people will bring 10 guests and the pool is just kind of overwhelmed. So we have to have a happy medium and we'll go back and discuss
Well, and I
that.
understand that, but
Sure.
the children are only, I mean, they have 2 hours in a pool outside.
Anyway, so understood.
So,
Okay, we'll go
um,
back and discuss that.
and then I noticed that all the dollar amounts for the activity cards were gone.
Also, because for the same reason, it could change.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Any
Any
other
other-
questions?
Oh, no, okay.
Sandy read it.
Well, we thank you so much. If you, yes, yes, sir.
In the document, it talks about the board, the arc, and the sub-arc. And I can never find out where a sub-arc comes from.
All
What's a
right, so-
sub-arc?
It's
So-
in the definitions in the beginning, but go
I
ahead.
thought I couldn't, I didn't.
Go
see
ahead.
All right, so there's an architectural review committee. It's made up of 7 members. At this time, there's only 6, but it's usually 7 members. And then there's a subcommittee. So the architectural subcommittee is made up of usually 14 members, a little less now as well. The architectural subcommittee meets every 2nd and 4th Thursday of the month. And that's the committee that reviews just the basics, landscaping, fences, patio covers, anything like that. The full ARC, the ARC, which they refer to as just the ARC, is the committee that reviews casitas, additions, any variance requests, and larger projects. So the subcommittee looks at those, but they bring it to the full committee, which meets only once a month to go over those large projects and review those.
That's what I thought, how I thought it worked, but I don't see where it says
Okay,
how it
we'll
works.
look at that and we'll add that if it's not
Because
clear.
it really doesn't, there's nothing to
Sure.
authorize a sub-arc committee.
Sure.
All right,
Blessing.
thank you.
Okay, we thank you. If you have any comments, please send them to James or bring them into the office
What?
for him.